Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Sending gratitude to all of you who are joining in today to accompany us down the rabbit hole of self-exploration through plant medicines. My name is Ryan Sprague, and I'm here to tell you that your frequency is now set and tuned to explore psychedelic medicines and the impact they've made among the countless psychonauts exploring the last true frontier. Buy a ticket and take the ride with me as we get true first-hand accounts of the experiences, benefits, risks, and transformations taking place within the ever-expanding world of psychedelic medicines on This One Time on Psychedelics. Do you ever meet someone who it feels like is in your mind? I have recently been having more and more of these occurrences in my life, and for me personally, it allows me to experience the psychedelic nature of life, like I often speak about on this show. And today's guest is 110% a prime example of this. His mission in life is to help his friends, family, and clients learn to live an awakened life through his passion as a self-realization mentor. By allowing his clients to move behind the I to discover who and what they truly are, it is safe to say that he is hitting the bullseye on his soul's mission to wake up the world around him. And in this episode, we dive into an absolutely epic heart flow that was completely off the cuff and smooth as butter. So sit back, enjoy the ride, and give me a big hand in welcoming my man, Pat Mahan, to the show. Pat Mahan, my brother, so excited to have you here with me today, man. We were just catching up before I hit record. I was like, dude, I got to hit record on this thing. This is some fire stuff, man. How you doing today?
I'm great, man. How are you? What's up?
Dude, doing great, man. You know, we're in the middle of this launch. Things are going great. I get to converse with you. Things are awesome, man. Can't complain. Can only express gratitude for this awesome day so far.
I love that, man. I love it. Same. Just kind of what we were just talking about before we're coming in, like finding gratitude when the things that you said you needed to be grateful for maybe lessen in your life or don't show up as much. Like, can you still find that place? So that is what this week has been, as it's like leading me into this conversation with you, which I've been pumped about for a long time. I loved our conversation, and like we were saying, it got such a good kind of response from the audience on this side that I was just so eager to get back on and kind of almost even continue what we were doing. So pumped here and grateful as ever.
Oh, dude, guys, for everyone listening, like, you know, I love meeting people like Pat for many different reasons, but especially because we can just flow. And you guys know from listening to the episode, like, or listen to the podcast, I don't really do many interview style, like question. I like just having dialogue, you know? And so, like Pat was saying, we were just diving into, you know, some of the days, right? Like today where I was like, I feel a little off today for sure. Like there's just certain days where, especially if you're really into getting under the hood on yourself and like working on stuff, you can just tell like when you don't really sleep maybe the best or something's a little off, right? So we were joking about that. And, you know, you bring up a great point, Pat, you know, being able to, you know, the ego categorizes things, right? So, I'm grateful for this thing. I'm grateful for that thing. I'm grateful for this person. And that isn't bad by any means, right? But like you were saying, what if you end up winning the lottery and you have a solo trip, right? And nothing's there. You're on an island and there's just nothing there. Let's just paint a random picture. Can you be grateful just to be grateful, right? Like, do you need to be grateful for something, or can you just be grateful, right? And I think that's like the same idea as like taking the masks off. You know, any good coach, what they're really doing is allowing you to subtract from the equation that normally makes up your quote unquote self to reveal what's always there, which is a pure state of love and joy, you know? And so I love this, man.
That's so funny, because even when we're talking about labels, ego, label, categorizing, right? It starts to build, by separating, it builds essentially the lens of perception that you see your kind of self and then reality from. And then the meaning because that has no inherent meaning other than the meaning that we apply based on what we think it represents us kind of as. But it's so funny. You're like, yeah, you know, what if you win the lottery? Like, that's a great example. What if you win the lottery and then you end up on an island? So like, what is the value of the dollars that you have been saying will change your life? Like, there are different aspects of life without those dollars in that scenario. And you still have to find for yourself meaning. You still have to find a connection. You still have to find safety. And so many people, myself included forever, like, it was like, if this happens, then I will. And that is such a lens of self-perception that when we're viewing it from that lower kind of, not lower bad, but lower, more dense view of ego, then we kind of go out in the world to try to fix what we think is broken, or what we try to bring to us what we think will complete us. And then that's kind of the journey that we both kind of reference, the self-realization journey of people who are, shifting from one paradigm to another. That's just so kind of funny, the different meanings and labels that are applied to our lens.
100%. It's like the idea of being on the earth, not of the earth. I'm pretty sure that's the quote, right? Like, it's
love that.
It's perfect, right? Because the idea is like, can you have a human experience where, yes, you have an ego, yes, you have this illusion of separation, and that's the game we signed up to play, but can you remember that the game is not actually what you think it is, right? That actually you're the one watching the TV screen of the game being played, right? Or you're actually playing the game, right? Like you're the person with the controller in their hand. But if you get so zoomed into the TV, you can end up mistaking yourself for the video game character. And I think that's really like what happened with me for a long time. I mean, this is a very common thing, right? Many different flavors and themes and ways in which it happens. But, that's like the idea of, waking up or falling asleep, right? You fall asleep when you get too sucked into the TV. You wake up when you realize, holy shit, I'm actually the dude playing the game. I'm not just the game character, right? Really interesting.
Right. It's like the allegory of the cave, right? With the shadows and the people that are making the shadows and they're chained to the wall, and then the one person breaks out and goes and sees like reality and tries to go back and tell the other people that are chained to the wall, staring at the characters on the wall, that those are just the it's like a hologram, those are the reflections. That's a shadow. Like there's the real stuff out, and the people are locked in their thing, like no, and then they kill that person, I think, in that story. But and Kyle Cease gives an interesting story, kind of similar to what you're talking about, being in a movie theater, like watching and being it. And, you literally forget that there's another reality around you when you are locked into to the character. And now go even a step further and imagine that you've seen this movie before, right? This is like it happening infinitely in every moment that you're in. And the highest aspect of you, like we're talking about contrast. So we're going to say from ego, the least kind of open, the most dense aspect of ego, which would be separate, right? In the belief systems that an ego character would have. I'm separate, I'm limited, my happiness depends on outcomes, right? I need to control things and manipulate. I'm a victim because I'm separate. I'm on the earth, not of it, right? All of those things, when ego categorizes the self from these different aspects of like body, the personal mind, even the soul. We have our own individual soul, right? That's ego kind of classifying a soul and experience subjectively. And then there's like the unified, the great causal body of infinite consciousness, which knows everything, is everything, does everything. It's just there, always is, always has, always been, right? So there's one end of contrast that is everything, knows everything, has everything. And then there's the lowest end of consciousness, the most dense, that thinks it's separate from that and does not believe that it is that, or that even is a thing at all. It's so kind of funny to think about the idea that this is, you ever hear Bashar say, like, this has all happened before. You guys have done this before. Like, you've done it infinite times, and you're going through it a little bit differently every time, shifting in these realities so that you can get a different viewpoint of yourself. The self is experiencing itself from these little glitch differences all over the place. So imagine like watching the movie that you've watched a million times, but it was like a long time ago and you kind of forgot. You have an idea of what happens, but not really, but you still get scared when someone comes to the door. You're still worried if they're going to drive off the cliff. You're not sure. Like, so it's that idea of letting go of the character in the game so that the character can kind of break that fourth wall and access the you that's watching it and be like, hey, on the couch there, like, what do I do? And then you from the couch that's standing there and has the whole movie memorized, like, go to the left. Just go to the left. That's all I can tell you. And then, like, if you're the character in the game and you trust that you're talking to something that knows more than you do in that moment, you'll just go to the left. And that's all you'll need. But if you don't think that, then you'll drive your car off a cliff. No, I'm just kidding. But if you don't believe that, right? And so those are the stages that I just love to deal with, like the different levels of being aware of your sense of self. Where do you find yourself? And then what do you do behaviorally in the world based off of those belief systems and that sense of self that you wouldn't do if you were connected to a greater or higher sense of yourself? Mm-hmm. What are we doing from this unconscious place that is creating an experience in your life for you to view and perceive and feel and kind of, I don't even know, just kind of literally walk through so that you can ask yourself who you are in this situation and why, what it's asking of you. And this constant deeper knowing of who you are from all levels that can ultimately wake you up to not kind of going out in the world to find who you are, to crash and burn, to discover this neutral zone where you start to ask those questions, but to live your life and lead your life from that knowing so that it flows through you. And that's kind of like and the things that you talk about, that you were telling me that most of your listeners are kind of interested in when it comes to like personal development and finding their best self, and how do you be a leader? How do you become that person? What is the difference between that person that we're saying is labeled or classified as an ego versus someone who is, or as a leader versus someone who is a follower? Like, what are those different dynamics? And I was talking about this with Gina. We were talking the other day, and leadership quality. And I said, I know a lot of people who were in leadership roles, but we're not leaders. And that was just like such an interesting thing to me, because I was like, well, why? Who put them in a role where they were designed, like the design of the role is to be a leader and to lead others. But they themselves were not that. They weren't doing those things. They weren't embodying those traits. They were doing, as a matter of fact, almost everything that you would not. It was like they were relying on the title, right? Like relying on the title to just, well, I'm a leader. How do you know? It's so on my badge. So now the behaviors that I'm kind of, showing in the world, and my actions, my beliefs, my thoughts, like what I'm doing in the world, it's I get to do what I want because I am allowing this title, this label of leader to kind of dictate the way, and you have to follow me and do what I say because of this. And then, there's some people who are wildly successful in that life, right? Like they're not the thing, but someone gave them permission to be the thing. And the whole foundation of that experience is shaky. It's the blind leading the blind, but they're still in the world doing what most people who are kind of, some people on the spiritual journey are like, well, they're manifesting. What are they manifesting? A promotion, more money, status, right? But they're not it. And people in the collective are like, that's what I want. And so I'm going to try to manifest this experience. And the difference, I think, between what you and I are talking about is like, find it, because there's no good or bad to this, but it's like finding those qualities in you as you peel back the onion of all the yous that you thought you were, that were designed to show you who you weren't. So you could have the contrast to realize what you are, peeling back all those layers to allow that kind of fourth wall break, that awakening moment, right? So you access that higher level of you, of the self, and then you let that flow from you, right? And then that's where you're, I think, going to find people who are not getting a job or a position because of the money it would pay them or the title that they're going to have, meaning sacrificing doing something that they would love so that they get this thing that means more to them, right? I'll sacrifice myself and my time. How much does it pay?
Yep.
What is it? What do I make, right? Versus someone who would absolutely not do anything other than what aligns with them and their greatest and highest joy every single second of the day. And with that, sometimes you have to trust that if I just do this long enough, if I just show up, and even if like it's a low tide, like we were talking about, and everything I thought I needed to be happy in this moment is taken away, it's like the leader shows up in that moment if you truly are aligned with that consciousness. And then that's when I found, like, if you can kind of walk in the desert, in the void long enough, it kind of does start to break open the game, and it does kind of open up the loops. There's a statement that says, like, what is it? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yes.
And when the student is really ready, the teacher will disappear.
I love that.
That changed my whole everything. I was like, yeah, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. Teach me, guide me, take me. And then all of a sudden, I was like, I got this lesson. This is great. I intellectually and analytically, like, I feel great. And then all of a sudden, it was just like, okay, see how you do with this. And I was like, where's the teacher?
Is anyone here?
Guidance? Is anyone out there? Like, where's the guidance? I understood after loop after loop after loop that it was like, hey, you said you were this thing. Analytically, in your mind, in your personal mind, ego says you are this. And when there's no opportunity to test yourself, it's very easy to say that. And then the next part is you're going to be given opportunities to prove it to yourself. And I find with most of the people that I work with, like, they're listening to a lot of the hype of spiritual lingo these days and new age thought, which is fine. But there is this idea that if I get into alignment and higher, like, and become this person, and you don't get what you want, you get who you're being. And like, true. But then the next part of this is, how do you know who you're being? How do you know? So if you think that you're relying on the knowing as an intellectual concept of who you are, your life can't change because you're not interacting with the reflection enough from the new position of consciousness to change the reflection. You're walking through the same reflection that the past you's created, and you're saying you have this new conscious insight, but you're not applying it and embodying it in the world. So therefore your reality doesn't change, and you live in frustration because you get this stuff. I know this stuff. Why isn't it? I am it. I just read every book that Eckhart has. Why is it not changing?
Yes.
And so that was like the biggest test for me, to test myself, was like, no, you got to show up and do, like, you all, it's a physical reality also. And that was just like game changing. All that stuff was just so game changing for me. But as far as what we were talking about.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick moment to let you all know that the doors are officially open for the Conscious Cannabis Collective. And as such, this is the last week you can sign up and receive all of the bonuses we're currently including. This is the last time I will be personally onboarding those of you who sign up with a complimentary one-on-one session, and you'll have the ability to get the Grow with Cannabis course for free during this limited time. For more info on how you can take advantage of this offer, head down to the show notes for this episode and secure your spot today, as we only have so many spots left and they are filling up quickly. Now back to the show. Oh, 100%, man. I mean, that was perfectly stated. Like, there was so much gold in there. And, really, like, the main thing I took from that too is that what you are seeking is also seeking you. Yet at the same time, there is this really big thirst trap called the mind, right? Which is fucking fantastic. It's a great servant, terrible master, right? Yep. Most people are unknowingly having that mind in the master seat and being totally convinced that, first of all, nothing else is even possible or real. Like, nothing outside of that even exists, let alone people that feel that they don't have the master and control, right? The ego and control, but yet are still doing it, right? This is why I love that quote. Wise is the man who knows he does not know. Because guess what, right? Like, you know everything that you think you know, but actually you don't know anything, because we don't live in an objective universe, right? So if you think that you know what color blue is, well, who's saying what blue is, right? You're looking at what someone else said blue was, and you're agreeing with that person, right? We don't usually think about all of this stuff as it's going on, but it's important to, because it's a big thirst trap, right? Like, because you could end up believing that because you go to school for 8 years and spend $300,000 and you've learned a specific system, that you now know things, right? But we need not look farther than Western medicine to realize that all of that money, and they're still missing quite a lot. And I'm not dissing them, right? Because Eastern medicine has their challenges too. But the idea is, with Western medicine, with science, with this very third dimensional view of reality, the ego side is so easy to see because it's, we fucking know. All right. We know, we have money, we have cars. I know how to be happy. It's like, what happy people don't do? They don't actually have to tell people they're happy. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something I've never had to tell someone, I'm really happy today. They're like, right. Why would I need to do that? You know what I mean? Like, that's because I'm trying to convince myself, right? And so whenever anyone's saying, I've got this figured out, I have this thing and that thing, it's like your ego is just trying to build a case against you ever looking past it. And it's so sneaky, right? Because at the end of the day, like, I think a lot of people, even in the spiritual realm now, think the ego is somehow like stupid or like, I'm going to kill my ego. It's like, dude, first of all, you can't, right? It's part of the illusion. Can't. The idea is to transcend so you can have it as your servant. The idea is I like expressing as the one who calls himself Ryan. I enjoy that. I'm enjoying of this game, yet I'm aware that it's a game. Do I know the entirety of it? Of course not. And that's not the point of being here, right? That's why faith comes in, right? Because from this denser place, this 3D reality, it would be extremely hard, unless you're an enlightened master, which is not nearly as popular as Instagram want you to believe, to be able to actually understand and hold the complex of infinity within your grasp, right? Now, can you taste it? Can you tune into it? Of course. But the same way that you don't need to understand what ice cream is to enjoy it, you don't need to understand what all this stuff is to be able to tap into it. You just need to be able to have faith enough to tap into it and believe in something greater and bigger than yourself. Yourself being the ego that is convinced yourself that it is who you are, right? But it is not, and it's funny because we live in the age of information. There's millions of books, maybe not millions. There's a lot of books on this, right? If there's millions, that'd be crazy.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of books on this. And so again, like, why wouldn't we as a society think, well, we've learned that like learning equals like knowledge, right? Like that's it. And then we go to these institutions called schools to learn. So therefore we must gain knowledge. And knowledge is somehow seen as a good thing because we're praised on how smart we are, how intellectual we are, right? These kind of things. So we've been, like hoodwinked, right, throughout society. And I don't know if anyone even knows this, right? Like, I mean, many people are tapping into it now, but, again, it's like, we've become so rooted in the mind that we just don't know how much we don't know, to put it lightly. It's very interesting, man. It's like, these are the kind of conversations. This is why I started the psychedelic podcast, right? Because, these are the kind of things that psychedelics allowed me to experience. Then I used the intellect to back up what I had experienced. And that's how I started realizing like, oh shit, what if I'm putting the cart before the horse, reading these books and then thinking I know what this thing is because I read a book? What if on the other end, I go have an experience and I go, what the hell was that? Then I go seek out the knowledge to be able to articulate it to teach other people, fucking fascinating.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. And again, right. Self-awareness. It's so interesting, self-realization. Like it's something that everyone is at some part of the journey. Inside of it, everyone is, because I don't think like from the second you access or realize yourself as being something, that's it, right? You're on the journey. You can just imagine that every single scenario you're in, the question that you're asking, whether it's unconscious or conscious to yourself, is who am I? Like no one who's ever, that's my thing that blows me away. No one who's ever been here on this earth or of this earth has ever been like, this is it. This is like, I know, right? But then here's the other thing. It's like, that's true and not true, because there are people for themselves who know, right? And get it. And here's the beautiful thing, because people are like looking for in the original paradigm, the first paradigm, which is like, I don't know who I am or what I am. Therefore, I will seek it outside of myself and hope that I can find the answer in the external reality. We're unaware, not awake to the idea that it is not an external anything. It is a complete reflection of your internal, guiding you to find the truest and most deepest nature of yourself, thus self, right? And so like kind of going from that paradigm, shifting outside of yourself to inside of yourself, and then asking yourself who you are along the way. It's wild that this ego, the first thing it kind of acknowledges itself as is a body. Right. And I think we talked about this before, but like the first thing, if there's a bunch of humans sitting around on a playground and you're a child, and a group of parents over there, and someone says like, hey, can you come over here? You don't even know your name yet. Hey, come here. Right. And the first thing they all do is they point to their body. So the first sense of self is, this is me. Right. And if this is me and I can jump off of this ground, then I am separate. I am not again of this earth. I'm on it. I don't know how I got here. I don't know what's going on. No one knows what's going on. Right. Like no one's ever known. So we develop, this, and then the next level of this self-realization game is the subtle body, and the subtle body is the personal mind. That's your egoic mind. That's what the first time you probably went like, Ryan, and now the story of Ryan begins. And the story of Ryan is only available to Ryan as Ryan navigates that inside of his own personal conscious mind. And everything that happens inside of the story of Ryan, forgotten or not, is accessible inside of that personal mind. And it holds all of the keys to whether you think you're good enough or smart enough or brave enough or cool enough or accepted, or do your parents love you, or the whole story of each of us as we learn our identity as being this body and mind is contained inside of like what the ego uses to manipulate you to get things it thinks it wants, because it doesn't even exist. It doesn't exist without your awareness of it. So we were talking again before we started, like your past, the story of you in your past mind has to be brought into a current moment, right? There's no past. It's all right now. So the one thing we were talking about, you were saying like the unknown, the trust, the faith. So ego can't do that because it needs to know. in order to feel safe, in order to feel. So when you're talking about knowledge, it needs to know and then be like, yeah, I know that. Yeah, I'm sure of that. So I've read all that, and that's fine because it's safety, it's security. If I have enough of something, then I'm safe. If I have enough of this, I'm valuable. It's all this kind of a collection of the labels that it's given meaning to that will, posture itself in the world. And if you think you're that, you'll be scared that you die. You'll be scared that you're a victim. You'll be scared of the whole concept of what it would feel like to imagine yourself as being a separate self, separate from the game and separate from life, and therefore like the victim of it. And then there's this thing that happens when people, wake up. I call them like wake up calls before the awakening. Like I work with people who say that they've had like high conscious experiences, right? Awakening, psychedelics, near-death experiences. It's all very same thing. You're accessing a different level of consciousness as you remove your sense of self being a person in the world. And you start to go into the unified self, from the personal mind to the unified mind, like, right? That whole thing. So when people are like, you have to be out of your mind, I'm like, you do. You have to be out of your personal mind where everything you thought you knew exists. And what I find is like the personal knowing is subjective, and it can be kind of battled with or argued against, or it's your own subjective viewpoint, and it's your truth, and whatever you believe that to be will be reflected for you. It's your own little journey of your experience of this life. And then when people have these, psychedelic experiences or near death or just, spontaneous spiritual awakening, I call that like the 10-year overnight success.
Yeah.
Like it's happening. So when people have these awakenings, they blast off into what you would call like the truth zone. It's the unified truth. It's why you and I can do what we do. It's not my truth. It's not your truth. It's kind of like a truth, the truth that's accessed, that resolves all paradoxes. It resolves all kind of your personal mind's conflict with who it is and what it is, because you realize who you truly are. And so like sometimes it seems that suffering or the confusion of the contrast that an ego goes through thinking it's separate and limited is required to wake you up and pop you out of the fourth wall of that movie and that story to get you to access the deeper truth. And like a dream, sometimes people get there and they access it, or they have amazing trips and these expansive, mind-blowing epiphanies, right? And they're like, oh my, they come back down and they're like, this was a life-changing epiphany. This was a life-changing realization. It existed beyond the scope of my personal mind. There was nothing in my personal mind that contained anything that was up there. And while I was up there, it seemed to shatter any part of that story that I had, that I was holding on so tightly to. It's so wild. And they're like, this will change my life. And it's like, if you can apply what you learned at that level of awareness of yourself and who and what you are, if you can apply that in the world where it would appear as though it is the most scary. Up there, it's easy. You're on your own. You're in a closet. You're dark. You're in a group, whatever. And then you come back down and it's safe. And it's like these amazing ideas and concepts of like, I've learned the truth. My life will change now. And then like people doing like higher self meditation so that they change their life. And it's like, that's going to bring you the opportunity to change your life. It's going to bring you the place in reality. I call them final bosses. Like the thing you're most scared of, the previous version of you that is looking to change or find out who you are, that version of you asks certain questions, right? Whether it was in suffering or holding onto the toilet or under the bed or shaking or screaming in rage, like you're asking questions about why things are happening. And then even after like a release like that, or a meditation or an experience with psychedelics or plant medicine, like you are now given this space to get what you might call the answer, right? From higher consciousness, like these realizations. And then you bring that down and you're like, whoa, everything looks the same, but I'm definitely different. I learned something from me, and this is great. My life's going to change. And then everyone will be like, why am I getting all this garbage in my life after I've had these amazing experiences? Like it was beautiful up there. Why is it still like this? You know what I mean? And it's because it's like a big realization. If you can realize that the you that you ultimately are, is sending you exactly what you need to prove to you that you are that which you ask to be. It's a game changer. It's a game changer. So when we're talking about like ego and kill the ego, so the first thing is like, you can't.
Yeah.
And
Good
the
luck.
second one is right. The second one is like, it's the ego, the realness of it is only real with our attention on it, which means that it is an illusion. So it appears to be real. It appears to have substance. It appears that its thoughts are real, and it has some, control over you and bearing, and you listen to what it says and you do those things. And it's just this wild loop. So how could it not be real? It's so real. I can hear it, Pat. It's right. I hear it telling me that you're full of shit. So it can't not be real. But the thing is that, again, the thing that is real, the thing that we're searching for is like, okay, your awareness. That's the only thing you can say for yourself that you know to be something that's true. And no one can argue against that because I'm aware, right? So when you realize that your awareness and your existence, you're aware of your existence, that's primary. That's a primary thing. And existence, by definition, can't not exist because it exists. So the you exists. And then that you brings that existence and awareness onto something that is secondary, whether it be something that appears to be in the external world, whether it appears to be the voice in your head. It only exists with your existence being focused upon it, which means that if you move your existence away from it and focus on something else that is more real, like that connection and what's available to you in that connection state, then the ego, what you might call, dissolves. It doesn't have a hold on you any longer. So this is why if you are attached to what it says as being part of your personal identity, you'll have what's called an ego death. It will feel like you are dying because it's trying to convince you that you don't know who you are without it. So it needs to live in that known space, but you are the unknown. You are the unmanifested. You are the infinite everything. But it requires such a degree of trust and faith and kind of like walking off the ledge of moving your attention away from whatever that voice is saying. It's designed to say the craziest to you so that you don't bring your attention away from it. It's designed to keep you locked in. It's designed to keep you on your phone. It's designed to keep you calling your ex. It's designed to keep you doing things you don't want to do for someone else who doesn't care if it's you that does it or another person. Like, it's designed for you not to do this. Why would it do that? Because I like to talk about like a play, right? Imagine, you have the hero in the play, the protagonist, right? And then you have like the villain in the play. Now, to what degree do you root for the protagonist, for the hero in the play? You can only really, truly root for and be proud of or know the hero in the play if the villain is doing his job. If the villain is off in the corner and doesn't really give a what the protagonist is doing and doesn't care, and there's no challenge and there's no real kind of fearful thing to overcome or the appearance of that fearful thing to overcome, then what good is the hero in the story, right? So when you kind of even understand to the point where like this ego that people want to kill is actually the demon that's trying to have, right, or the demon that's our friend, right? Like the demon under the bed that's like just trying to wait for you to get it, just waiting to applaud you so it can evaporate. It's not a scary demon. It's the thing you need to move you forward. So like when you realize that ego is the same thing, and at this level of conscious awareness, it is seemingly, it's a necessary part of the journey. And without it being so convincing and so bullying and such a seemingly powerful thing that exists on its own without you, without it giving that representation that scares the shit out of you or makes you so mad or frustrated, without it being that convincing, it's not so amazing when you transcend it. And then once you show yourself that you are powerful enough as yourself and who you truly are to go, holy shit, I don't have to give my attention to you anymore. And you're not mad at it. You're not angry. You don't want to kill it, but you're like, thank you. Like, thank you. I get it. When you really get it, you can say thank you to that thing you want to kill. So it had to be that convincing to get you to understand that it doesn't exist without your existence. Therefore, it is not real. And then when you can do your best to live your life from that place, all of the things that ego thought it knew, all of the fact that ego makes you keep repeating your past over and over again because it's comfortable, even if that's your suffering, it's comfortable. I'm going to suffer in this because I know it, because that's safer to me and less scary than jumping out into the unknown and trusting that today's going to unfold for my highest good and the good of all. If I just walk each step and trust that the next step is going to be shown to me, like that's the teeter-totter that so many people are on, but they're busy fighting and killing their ego and not thinking that everything happens for a reason because they still feel like they're a separate character in the game. And it's just so like expansive when when you're across from someone who finally like gets it, gets it.
Oh, 100%, man. I mean, again, perfectly stated, man. This is one of the many reasons I love riffing with you so much is like, I tell everyone this, like the inner critic or ego, whatever you want to call it, right? Like that part of you is actually your best friend in disguise, the same way that we hear about in soul contracts that the souls that you're closest to will play your villain, right? Like they will be the one that tests you so you can rise to the occasion, and the hero's journey would not be the hero's journey if it was like, well, the hero went to slay the dragon was sleeping, he stabbed it in the neck, and then he went home. It's like, cool story, bro. Like where was the excitement? Where was the challenge? Like this is why we all love movies like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, etc. It's all depictions of people rising above their ego, right? Like that's all what it is. And the funny thing is too, like we've talked about often in this show, it's not that you even need psychedelics to be able to access this ego death, right? Like, and by ego death, I mean exactly what you mean, right? Like the people that are so identified that it literally feels like they're dying. But again, like this is what meditating does, what all these things can do. The great thing about psychedelics is it's going to happen regardless if you want it to or not type thing. Whereas if someone is so stuck in instant gratification, or they can't even understand or understand what we're talking about, and they discern like, okay, I'm going to go do a psilocybin journey with a shaman or medicine man or something. If they go do that, they might actually be able to experience what the payoff is all about, right? And that's where, like, I think psychedelics really come in, is in the modern day world where we have shorter attention spans than ever. Our dopamine system is hijacked all the time. We're not going to it's really hard for us to sit still, right? Especially if we don't know why we're doing it and people are saying, just trust me, it's worth it, right? So you do a psychedelic a couple times, you have that transcending of ego. And then someone goes, you see that thing? You can get that other ways. Now that person goes, oh, now I'm going to meditate every day and know that if I don't get it right off the bat, it's still worth working towards, And it's funny, man, because I have these moments now where I just completely become disconnected from my ego. It always happens at night. It doesn't happen like randomly. I imagine it'd be really friggin' weird if it happened randomly, but it first started happening. Like it first started happening to me at acupuncture when I'd be like sitting on the table with needles in me. And all of a sudden, like I can't even explain what it is, dude. It's so funny. It happened to me again last night. But all of a sudden, I'm everything. And I'm feeling everything. But it's like, I don't notice it. Then all of a sudden my ego clicks back and is like, what the hell? And then boom, I'm back in my body. And usually it jolts me back in. So like last night, it was so funny because I've been getting so much more used to it. I'm laying in bed, just about to go to sleep, and all of a sudden it happens, right? Where it just feels like I become everything and then back to here. And I literally just stood up like, the fuck? And then I was like, all right. And then just went back, and it happened a couple more times. And so funny, it kind of like reminds me of something that used to happen to me as a kid, actually. I remember when I was a kid, when I would watch movies, I think this is something that probably, I've never actually talked about this with anyone, so I don't know if this is just a me thing, but I don't know if for anyone else, when you look at a TV every once in a while, it doesn't look super zoomed out, right? Like, I don't know if you've ever seen that or had that happen. Your vision just like is adjusting or something. It used to happen to me all the time as a kid, and I got it. Like, I understood what was happening. Like, I understood I wasn't going crazy, but it would look super zoned out. Then it would be really close in, right? And so like in that super zoomed out view, it would mess with your proprioception. You know what I mean? Because like, know your arm's right there, but it does feel like it's like way out there. So in those moments, I would feel that expansion. And as I got used to that as a kid, I wonder, like, I've never really thought into this of like, was that like a foreshadowing, of like, get used to this feeling now, man, you're going to be in the business of having feelings like this, So very interesting stuff. But, it is so interesting, man, because, this is really like why we're here. We're here to self-actualize. We're here to have self-realization. And I think that it is a real big challenge when a lot of people go to the grave not ever even understanding this is possible, let alone doing it or being able to do it. And I think that, it's one of the reasons I'm so grateful to have found the people I found, trained the people I've trained, and been disciplined in like meditating and these kind of things because, albeit, I'm still in ego, right? Like I still have an ego, right? And so it's not like I've transcended it forever, but I now know I can call it out like, oh, I'm sleeping right now. I'm not awake right now. Or, oh, when you do that, my ego gets triggered in this way, right? So creating separation from it allows me to more identify with what is behind the eye, which is the divine being having a human experience. Fucking cool.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, when you talk about, these experiences like psychedelic experiences and the different things, I mean, it's the reason I was saying like what I was saying before is because it's so firsthand of some of the most profound experiences that I had were when I was doing some kind of like a hero's, dose or some kind of an experience. And I have I don't know if I can tell it here. I have an interesting story.
Do tell.
With a DMT. Okay, good. I just want to make sure that we're.
Oh, of course, dude. This is the podcast to do it, brother.
Okay. So yeah, I always, so the mushrooms have been like a part of my journey early on for sure. And then there was a period of time where I was kind of like microdosing, on off, just to kind of get the benefits of every day. But I have an addictive background, and you can't get addicted to them per se, but like an addictive mindset can trick itself into becoming addicted to literally anything.
Yeah.
Even if the substance itself doesn't contain properties that would chemically affect you understand what I'm saying. So like, I noticed that there were these experiences where whatever I was kind of like going through or whatever I was experiencing, I could tell before I was going to take or like dose or kind of like get into that meditative state. Inside, I would be not worried. I don't want to say that I was worried, but it usually came at a point where I really wanted to know an answer, right? So in the beginning, the me that didn't know how this works was like, I want to know an answer. And I've been journaling on it. I'm trying to do this the air quotes right way. I don't believe there's a right way. Like it finds you when it finds you and you do it and it happens the way that it's supposed to. But I was, do it the right way and very respectfully and And I was just like, yeah, I want to find an answer. And then I would get up there and blast out of body and personal mind, kind of, right? Like I'm looking at the door and there's still, trust me, a personal mind right here, the me that I really think I am. That's like, oh no, what'd you do? Like, what's going on? And it's like, I knew that like through that door was some kind of an answer. But then I was, this is so crazy, man. But it's one of the most powerful things. And it doesn't matter if you're blasting off on psychedelics or if you're right here. If you could bring this in right here and know that a lot of the questions that you're asking, that you're saying you want the answer to, you don't. You do, but you don't, because you already have the answer. You are already the answer. You're accessing the you that knows the answer. But the you that you think you are, from whatever limitation, thinks it needs to kind of do whatever it is to get the answer, the one that doesn't know the answer yet here, doesn't want to know a lot of the answers, because the truth, your truth, that's hidden so deep within you that you are going to realize or have to face in that experience, higher conscious, psychedelic, whatever it is, like if you're not really ready to let that go or face that fear or whatever it is, like you're going to have what they typically describe as a bad trip. I don't believe there's such a thing. I'm not saying there was a pleasant experience. Yeah. I'm saying it wasn't a bad trip. It was terrifying as the experiencer of that who was holding on to something I didn't want to let go of. And what it was showing me, the things, the images, and it was way more real than what this is, this 3D space here. It was so much more real in my face and changing rapidly and scaring me to like death. But it was showing me and I was like terrified. And like, I know that I was just in this place where I was like, what did I do? And then also it throws in the infinity loop because time's not real. Yeah. So it presents your ego, it presents you with this idea that says, this will never end. You're in it now. You've done it. You've ruined everything. Your brain is shot. And now we're going to just keep showing you this. And it was confronting my mortality. It was confronting the me that I thought I was. It had me confronting, like resolving, my mom passing when I was younger, everything that I was running from, all of the things that I was doing was just locked in this one trip, this one experience. And it scared me. And I'm like, okay, I did my research and I've been on this journey, and research can go out the window when you're in it, So yes. The one thing that I remembered as my anchor, because I like to try to go in the best I can with an anchor, like something to remind myself of no matter what I'm seeing or experiencing. And it was just very simple and basic. And it was just like, you are love. It is all love. There's nothing bad happening here, except allow, right? And expand. That was my thing. And the second that I did that, the second that I was like, oh, wait. Love. You're not real. You're not, like we were talking about, like your energy and attention is creating this. It's not a separate thing happening to you, just like the world isn't a separate thing happening to you. You're one with this thing. And there's a message here, and it is not more powerful than you. You are here to realize that you are beyond this, but you have to show this thing that you're scared of and hate and judge and whatever, feel shame. Like, you have to show that love. You have to show that love that shows you who you are. And I was like, oh, love, 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 love. Like, but it was real. It was genuine. I wasn't trying to get out of something. I was like, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. And it literally just went, okay, clink. And like turned into the most beautiful, like landscape, like waterfalls. Like, I was the waterfall. It was like the clouds. I could instantly like zoom up into the clouds and look down. Like, I could go anywhere I wanted, right? Completely the most open and expansive thing ever. But it came from, or was, I would say, grown from the worst that I could subjectively imagine seeing in my life. It's designed for you and shows you everything you need to see in order to give yourself the opportunity to do this. And so like, I'm like, okay, I came back from that and I'm like here and I'm like, okay, like Michael Pollan, where he blasts from his DMT trip and he's like, okay, I have a body.
Yeah.
I have legs, arms. All right. I am a person here. What the, like, so I was just literally like merging with the essence of everything. And now I'm Pat Mahan, like, all right. So I come back, into this space, and I'm just like, that was the most profound, amazing thing. And the message was like, there was still like the messenger there, like with me in the room, me, but this voice that was like, see what you just did? Like, this place is designed the exact same way because it's all consciousness. It's all one thing. And yes, it is, we'll say less dense up here, meaning like there's less what you call physical reality, but the idea is the same. There's nothing that's scary here. There's nothing that is more powerful than you. There's nothing that you can't show love to because you are love. And you are allowed to have this thought, right? This free will, that's this thing that starts our free will, if you want to say we have that, is that there's an idea that we can choose to not believe that we are that. We are allowed to not believe that we are that. And the second that we go, I have the choice and I don't think I'm that, ego comes in. We're a separate self. We're on the earth. We're not of it. We're a victim to everything that happens. And the story of that thought begins. And then we take our attention, which is technically also equally or more than connected to infinite everything in any moment that we choose to be able to access that. And we take that and we unconsciously, because we fall asleep, give it to this character. And then that character's story and its belief systems, which are all a derivative of the one thought that says that I am not that, unfolds for you in this contrasting experience that ego walks you through and gives you the play-by-play on, hopefully so that you suffer enough by that thought. You are put to the fire enough by that thought and what it manifests or unfolds for you in your life from thinking that you or believing that you are not one with everything and the source of it all and connected to and a part of this one life awareness experience. And once you have these kind of like wake up calls, you like see the TV zoom out and you're like, that's weird. And you pop out of like the fourth wall of you. Like when you first realize that you are having a conversation with you, like that there's two of you, you're not either of them, but you're the one aware of both. Like, wait, like we have enough of those along our journey, usually when something bad happens or we experience something like a loss or a real dramatic change, in our life. Something that doesn't go the way that ego thought it would or should. And then we start to go like, what is going on here? Why is this happening? But your mouth isn't moving and there's no one else in the room. Right. And then there comes a moment where you realize that you just did that. And you're like, who am I talking to? Who am I talking to? Who is listening to this? Right. Like what is it? Michael Singer? What is that book? The Untethered Soul, where he says, say hello in your head 5 times and then ask yourself who's speaking and who's listening. And it's like, kind of both, but you're the one listening.
Yes.
So when you break out of that fourth wall enough then you kind of are just left with a choice. And like, we're just trying to, you and I think I believe both. We're just trying to make life a little bit more simple for humans that are caught up in the same stuff you and I were caught up in and still find ourselves caught up in, which is falling back into the unconscious and forgetting that you are this and connected to, and what happens when you lead from that place. These things that psychedelics show you, these things that meditations show you, these things that these fourth wall breaks show you. And some of the simple things are just like, you have a choice. And like they say, like Brandon's podcast, love Brandon, right? You have a choice in every moment, love or fear, right?
Yes.
And so similar to that trip that I went on, it, as complicated as that experience was, it showed me there's one thing, love or fear, which one? So no matter how complicated ego presents you this fearful final boss situation that you might be going through right literally now, ask yourself, who are you looking to realize yourself to be from what this is showing you? Can you, with what you know already, show up as that in the world through the thing that scares you the most, or upsets you the most, or shames you the most, or makes you feel guilty, or asks you to kind of step into that infinite power of you? Like, can you do that through the thing that's scaring you the most to see what's on the other side, even though it's unknown? An ego can't stand unknown because it needs to know everything to feel safe. Can you realize that's not a real thing, and that who you are and what you are exists when you step off that kind of ledge of into the unknown and lead from that place, even though it appears as though it's challenging and it takes a while to build momentum? Like, that was just the most powerful realization from one of the wildest trips I've ever had.
Oh, I mean, it's incredible because, you know, these experiences, they're just that, they're experiences, right? And then we try so hard to articulate them, right? And I remember, like, you know, it's so funny because I'm the same way. Like, I host a psychedelic podcast, so I want to talk about them, and I always remind myself, like, as much as I can talk about them, it's like 1/10 of the power, right? And I imagine you feel the same way too. It's like words, just, it's beyond words, right? And I literally remember my last psilocybin experience that I had a couple of months ago. We did a 10-gram tea with Rachel and I, and it was awesome, as it always is. But, you know, of course, like, I'm used to a lot of the challenges that come up in psilocybin. I know kind of like the werewolf stage where you're half not out of your ego, you're half out of your ego. It's kind of like, oh, there's a lot of like feedback. But normally what happens is once I break through, we meditate through the whole thing, just laying down. It's awesome. And eventually it's almost like you're flying in an airplane and all of a sudden the cloud's just gone and then you're just open, right? So
Same. Yeah.
Oh, it's the best, right? And then when I'm in that state, what will happen a lot is I'll naturally just be there, and then I start to come down a little bit. And the second my ego starts to click and I start wanting to articulate and explain things, right? And it was so funny catching myself and just like laughing at it, where like I'd be just blissed out and I'd be like, you know, this kind of, no, just don't say any words. Just stick there. Like, and it was just so funny because I was able to love myself so much during it, love the ego and the part of me that wanted to express, and also love the part of me that's a little bit wiser that was like, just enjoy, just sit back and enjoy the hammock ride, you know? And I think that it's so important to be able to, like you said, bring love to everything. There's a great quote that I love, which is, love is the answer. Now, what was the question? You know, and it's like, I mean, it's so accurate, you know, and again, like, I used to laugh at things like this in my younger years when, you know, people would say it's just all about love, you know, and I'd be like, okay, like, I get it, like hugs, kisses, like, you know, feeling like you're together with something in life. Like, okay, I think I get it. But that was because my intellect was trying to understand a concept that is literally so beyond words that it doesn't even make sense to try to describe it, right? We all understand the idea of love when we say it, so the word works, right? We can tune into that. But I mean, experiences are just that. I mean, like, they leave you with shock and awe, and it takes a while after, like I'm sure you found too, to be able to like actually articulate what transpired in that experience, man. It's just so powerful. Yeah.
For me, it took me years to be able to say what I just said. I've said several years.
Yeah.
Years. Don't be fooled.
Yeah.
It's years. I'm still working on it. What you were saying, I wanted to touch on what you were saying as far as like love, like not being able to speak. And if you think about, like, what are we doing? We're using words and noises out of our mouth hole to try to make words that have some kind of meaning, and we're trying to figure it. But if you take, like, you know, we're in a contrasting experience, right? So in order to know what love is to the fullest degree, to know, not know, but to know what love is to the best that we can, the highest level that we can embody it or imagine it, we also have to know what fear is. Like, you can't, you know, to know what fear is, to people that have been living in, or when I was living in a really scary place, and, you know, the lowest level of self-realization is they call it the insanity level, right? It's the level where you are so connected to your sense of self being the victim, and so separate from life and everything, that your thoughts, or the majority of them, are all attacking. So the thoughts are attacking you and everything else, and therefore, as a reflection, everything you see is also attacking you. So again, we're giving meaning to the blank screen of reality, right? Your lens, where you find yourself, is projecting that. So like, when I was finding myself in that place, the most terrified place that I could imagine, when someone would try to ask me what was going on, and I was doing the same thing or similar thing of trying to use these words that I knew to express it, I only could say one thing, and that is that I have no words. I have no words. There are no words that I can use to describe. Like, you just don't understand, right?
Yes.
There's no words to describe the depth of what we can experience from a space or level of what you would call fear. And then there's like this middle gradient, right? And then there's the other end when you have felt the most love, the most just unbelievable connection, like you're talking about blasting off into the clouds and like being with someone like and loving yourself and getting the game when you pop out and you access that, like that level of truth for you to the point where you know what's going on here, who you are and how this is unfolding. And someone tries to ask you what it is, like you're like, no, I could try. No words. I have no words. And even the best words will fall short of what it really is to the person who experiences it. And that's why even if somebody were to come down and be like, I know the answer, I have it, and it's on CNN or the news, like other people have the choice not to believe you. So it can't be the thing, even if it is. Just like we have the choice not to believe we're that. It doesn't matter. No one's going to ever find the answer that's going to, because we have to find it on our own, right? Exactly. So in this middle ground of like, the contrast of like the depth of fear and the depth of love and not having there be any words, to be able to know that ego is trying to put words to it. And it's trying to kind of like confuse and confound and keep you in this place. But sometimes it's surrendering that. It's surrendering the desire to try to articulate with something that could never possibly do it, that allows you to just be it, right? The being is beyond the words that are trying to describe what being it is. So sometimes people, they talk with me and they're like, well, but how? That's a big comment that I get in, a lot of the sections, even on the podcast, like, but how? I love everything you just said. I listened to the show 3 times, but how though? How do I sit and allow love? Like how though? And how do I let go of my ego again? How though? So the first thing is I'm like, who's asking the question? The one who believes that it needs to do something in order to access this, and then also must know the way in order to give itself permission to do that? Like, or would you who is doing it ask that question? No, because you're it. So if you believe you're it, then you can listen to the ego say, but how? And go, oh. So we're just going to do. I'm not going to listen to you or try to figure this out anymore. It's simply a choice. I can just choose this. But ego doesn't want you to make that choice. So it kind of tricks sometimes. It tricks us into being like, no, I'm on your side. I'm on your side. We're going to figure out how to do this. Like buy another book, listen to another thing. Like how? We're going to figure out how. I'm on your side now. Like spiritual ego comes in. Yeah. Now it's not your enemy. It's your best friend. And it's using your spiritual intellect I'm here to help you figure out how to do that. But it's an infinite question. It's an infinite perpetual question of, but how though? So that's how someone can listen to something that made perfect, clear sense and then be like, yeah, that's all true. But how? So it takes us right out of it. And the answer, and it's simple as can possibly be, is that you let go of the search and you realize that what you're seeking is seeking you. Not only is it seeking you, it's you. Yes. And that, like Dorothy with the slippery, you're always home. You never had to do any of that. But it's like the alchemist, the journey you had to go on to realize that you could come back and you didn't have to go on the journey. That's our life. So you don't have to listen to the how of it. The how is actually trying to stop you from doing what you already know inherently how to do. The question is, will you, or when will you be ready and willing to just live from that place without needing to know and articulate how, and then embodying it and showing up in the world as that light is what other people will actually be inspired by, not what you say, but like who you're doing the best you can. We're all doing the best we can to be that in the world and then put words to it. Right. And that was so amazing. When you said something about like the things that we already know, ego needs to know. And it's like the simplest thing, love is the answer. Right. And it's just like, we see it, we hear it. It's all over the place. It's in every meme. It's on all, Instagram everywhere. And it's on a shirt. And, it's like, be here now. Right. Or, love is the answer. And it's like, we see it all the time when we flip right by it when we are in ego, because again, ego's trying to use the words, which are labels, which we have meaning to, but the meaning can't do the emotion justice. So we're kind of living in numb land. But when you have a psychedelic experience or a high conscious experience, meditative experience, the exact same thing comes in, because that's the answer. Right. And it's like, it's just so funny. You're like, you can be with a group of all your friends, right? And you're doing this meditative experience. You all just have this tea and you're like on this another level. And you come down and all of a sudden I'm sitting there and I'm like, guys, like be here now. Like, guys, no, wait, be here now. Right. And they're just like, oh my God, like love, right? Like love is it's just so funny. And like, the difference between like feeling it and knowing it and seeing it and coming back down, and how like obvious but profound it is.
Yes.
When you're really it, versus like just walking around and seeing it on every coffee cup and on every shirt and on every movie and every TV. Like, yeah, show, be here now. And it's like, yeah, be here now. Of course, you only have this moment. Like, you only have this moment. Like, yeah, that's true. I guess so. It's always now, right? Like, no. And then you have it and you feel it and you're there and you come back down and it's the wildest thing ever.
Dude, I mean, you hit a nail on the head. It's like, we are human beings, not human doings, right? And that is the hilarity of it, right? Like, that is the funniness. Once you start to become aware of like, oh my God, my ego literally thinks I have to work to do this. That's hilarious. And then you get sucked back in and you're like, oh my God, it happened again, right? It's like finding the mantra again when you meditate. Like some days your mind's more chatty, right? It just happens, right? Some days it's just effortless to get there. But Pat, I have loved this conversation, man. I can't believe an hour already flew by, dude. Where can people find you, man? Where can they stay up to date with everything you're doing? Tell the people, man. Tell them where they can find you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, you can find me. The main website is likeattractslikeevolution.com. That's where most of the other free resources that I have, workshops, things like that are available. You can find me on all the social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, just as Pat Mahan _. And you can email if you want to chat directly. It's likeattractslike11@gmail.com.
Dude, I love that, man. And it's so fucking cool. I love your website name too, man. And, I want to ask you one last question that I ask everyone, right? And I'm curious what your answer is. So let's say that someone listens to this episode and they're extremely excited to check out psychedelics in their own life, right? And see if they're right for them. What is the one piece of advice that you would suggest to them to allow them to use the proper discernment in choosing whether or not psychedelics are right for them in their lives?
Yeah, well, I feel like because I like to view this from the idea that in this current moment that you are in, as you are kind of pondering the question, the you that's pondering the question, as this comes into your experience, know that the you that's pondering the question, should I or shouldn't I, is a version of you that doesn't have the answer yet. The you that does have the answer to that question has sent you an opportunity based on something it knows you may need in order to access that level of what you actually are based on the questions that you've been asking. So if you can realize that there is no right or wrong, there is no good or bad, and if this is starting to be a theme in your life, or if it's coming in a very kind of what you might call synchronistic way, which it often does, that there is a reason for it. And while I like to kind of say, like, I never will tell someone what to do, I believe that as you access deep in your core without fear what this opportunity could bring to you in your life, then I think you will find that the answer will be very, very clear. If you are coming from a place of fear when you are asking that question, there's a good chance that you put it off until you believe you're ready. But you're ready, dude, when you say you are.
100%. I mean, it's literally a decision. It's a state of being, like everything else, right? And, like I say in every episode, guys, like, it's not like Pat or I recommend them. We also don't recommend them, right? It's just like you'll feel it, because the part of you that understands what is possible will be the one in control at that point, right? The one that's in the lead, I think I would say, instead of control. So Pat, thank you so much, guys. I hope you all loved this episode. Pat is absolutely amazing. Make sure you keep up with his stuff. He's incredible. I love the heart flows we have. It's effortless. Pat is such an amazing soul, and someone I am forever grateful for meeting within this lifetime to charge my battery and spread his light to the world at large through the podcast. And for anyone looking to get in touch with Pat and benefit from his powerful and potent work as a self-realization mentor, make sure to dive into the show notes for this episode, where I will be laying out all of the details to do just that. Pat, thank you so much for being such a bright light in my world and the worlds of countless others, for sharing your time, your wisdom, and your heart with us on the show today, and for being such an incredibly beautiful soul, my man. And until next time, my brother, may your journey be smooth and full of light. Aho.